Morning. Today we're going to show you how to make a quick and dirty roof and base for a bee box, so you can get started if you've caught a swarm, or perhaps you've got a package ready to go but you don't have your flowhive ready and put together yet. So first of all, we're going to run through what's important for the bees, and then we're going to run through how you can create that with various different materials from around the place. So first thing that's important is the bees need to have frames. Now you will need frames like this because you need to keep the bees organized so that you can inspect those frames later. You will need a box like that, but you don't necessarily need the baseboard. The function of the flowhive 2 baseboard is to do a whole lot of things for you, including the pest management. But if you need to quickly create a base, I'll show you how to make a much more simple one of those. And the other thing you'll need is shelter, and that can be achieved in easy ways as well. So let's start at the baseboard. If you do have questions, put it in the comments below. So I was just creating a quick and simple baseboard right here. Now this is just using a piece of particle board, but you could use anything. You could use a piece of tin, a piece of old fibre cement sheet left over from some building site, or whatever you've got, some plywood. Doesn't really matter. You're not making this to be something to last forever. Okay, so the first thing you'll do is cut some sticks to size to be a riser. Now in this case you want the rise to be somewhere between 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch. In Australia the common size is about 9 millimeters of rise. In North America it tends to be a bit higher, a bit open, a bit taller entrance. I would recommend having smaller, especially when your hive is starting. That way the bees can defend the hive more easily when they're in their weak phase. So all I've done is I've cut some sticks to size and put them around the edge, leaving one side open. If you've got questions, put them in the comments and we'll get to answering those. But it's not a bad idea to put it on some blocks or something that you've got around to get it up off the ground, away from the moisture and everything that's going on in the soil. That base will last longer. Your bees will be happy to be a little bit elevated off the ground. Then the next thing is your box. Now you will need a brood box. If you're really handy with skills, you could perhaps create a box yourself, but you will need a brood box. So that'll go on top of that base, lining it up like that. Noticing that there's an entrance now created at the front here for the bees to come in and out. Doesn't necessarily have to have a landing board. A landing board is something that humans have decided that bees need because we think that it might be more efficient for them to have a board to land on, and some tests show that that is the case. But bees are very adaptive and they'll go through the tiniest little hole, a crack in the wall, a big long tunnel, whatever. It doesn't really matter, they'll find their way in. So as long as you have an entrance, your bees will be happy to get in and out of the hive. The entrance could be at the bottom of the box or it could be at the top. It doesn't matter in this case. So the next thing you'll need to do is your frames. Now you need to put together your frames so your bees can get organized and put their comb on this comb guide. And it's important to have all your frames. What happens if you don't put any frames or leave some frames out of the box? The bees will build random comb in any which way in here, turn into a great big mess. You'll need to cut that out and rubber band it into frames later. Try and avoid that. If you were catching a swarm in a cardboard box, for instance, you want to leave them in there for no more than half a day because they will build comb very quickly in an open space. So sometimes the cardboard box is all you've got, but that is a very temporary home for bees. You do need a box with frames. So you'll need to put all your frames in. In this case, it's an 8 frame Langstroth box, so we'll need 8 frames in the box like this with the space either side. So any space left over, put on either side, press the frames together. If you've caught a swarm, they will be building comb very quickly. And if you've got gaps like that, then the bees will build all sorts of wonky comb, and that'll be hard to clean up later. Make sure your frames are pushed together. Then the next thing we need is a roof, just to keep some shelter and some shade on your bees. So you could create that in a myriad of different ways. The flowhive roof has an inner cover and then another gabled roof on top of that, but you don't need that to get started. You could use anything you like. You could use a piece of this hardy, this is a fibre cement sheet. You could put that simply on top like that, put a brick on top, and away they go. And that will suffice as a home for your bees and a place they can start building their comb on those frames as they get started. If you've got a lot of sun on your hive and it's hot, then you may want to put another layer on top of that. You could use an old piece of roofing iron or anything you've got on top, and that would provide some more shade and insulation for your bees. If you haven't got those materials around, then you could even use things like that core flute or old real estate kind of sign material. You could use something like this, even for the base and for the roof. Now, all you do would be to cut this to size. If you've got questions, put it in the comments below and we'll get to answering those. So, all you do is cut this, and that simply goes on top of your box like that and would become your roof. That's not particularly a great roof. If you put a brick on top, then it will bend in and touch the frames and create kind of a space for hive beetles and whatnot to be in that area. So in that case, it would be good to put a piece of tin on top of that, provide yourself a bit more shade, and also it will limit it from being pressed in when you put your brick on top. But that will suffice as a fine roof for your bees as they get started. I'll run through a few more options. If you've got questions, put it in the comments below and we will get to answering those. Another thing you could use, and I've done a fair bit of in the past, is a tin base like this. Now this is just an old piece of tin, and what you could do is, if you didn't have time or didn't have the materials around to create this riser, would be to simply put it like that, nail it to the bottom, and then bend down the edge of the tin, creating a gap for the bees to come in the front. So all you do is nail this to the bottom, bend it down so the bees could come in like that. And bending it down would also mean that water, when it hit it, could then not go into the hive. If you're using a baseboard like this, sloping it towards the entrance is a good idea, because you don't want water pooling in your hive. Any water that comes in will flow out again. So there's a few tips and tricks on how to create a easy baseboard and also an easy roof for your brood box to get started.